You wouldn't what's it called? I can't think of the word. Nope, that's not right. Why can't I do my outro? Hey fellow fiction fanatics, I'm Chase. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be telling you some books that I do not think you should read at the same time. For one reason or another, these books are just too similar and I would not read one along with the other. I'm going to let you know the reasons why I think they're so similar along with which one I would recommend. I will do my best to give a description of these books, but I haven't read some of them in quite a while, so I will also have a link to their Goodreads so you can check out the synopsis in the description box below. Alright, let's get into it. So these first two definitely played into the dystopian phase that came after the Hunger Games. The first one is Divergent by Veronica Roth, and the other one is Matched by Ali Condi. These two books, like the Hunger Games, have a dystopian world where a girl is thrown into the mix and she changes everything up and starts a revolution. These two books are just far too similar because they have essentially the same plot, just done a little differently. Basically, in Matched, you're told who you're supposed to end up with, and that's just the way it is. But on the day that she's matched with someone, she sees two people instead of one. So there's also the love triangle aspect and all that. And then in Divergent, there is the 5 different factions that you take a test and you're told which one that you would best fit into. And in these worlds, that's just the way it is and you follow suit. And then of course this girl breaks the mold and, the story occurs from there. Unfortunately, I don't think I could recommend either of these. I read all 3 books in Divergent. The first 2 I really enjoyed, and then the last one was a major letdown. So I wouldn't pick Divergent, but I only read the first book in the Match trilogy, and so I couldn't really recommend that book either. So because of that, I'm going to choose a book that has another similar premise that is definitely inspired by the Hunger Games as well, but between Divergent, Matched, and this book, I would have to go with that one. And that is Numbers Game by Rebecca Rhodes. Again, very similar premise to the other 2. In this world, you are given a number that shows your ranking. Greens are the best, yellows are okay, and then reds are just, you are the poorest of the poor. You don't want to be a red. It's what happens when she gets her number. And I actually thought it was pretty good. So for those 3 books, I'm definitely going to have to go with Numbers Game as my recommendation. So the next 2 books I have are Spelled by Betsy Hsiao and Dorothy Must Die by Danielle Page. Obviously, both these books have a Wizard of Oz theme, and they're sort of an alternate version of what happens after Dorothy. In Dorothy Must Die, Dorothy came back to Oz, gained power, and then turned evil, essentially. She's not the happy Dorothy we know and love. This is about another girl from Kansas who is taken to help stop Dorothy and has been recruited by the Revolutionary Order of the Wicked. And the story goes on from there. Spelled is about Dorothea, who is the Princess of Emerald. When she's forced to marry a prince, she makes a wish on a star. Unfortunately, this is a cursed star and chaos ensues from there. So that's her story. Both of these stories definitely have the Oz inspiration. I didn't love either of these. I only read the first book in Spelled, but I read the first 2 books in Dorothy Must Die, and nothing happened. So for these 2 books, I would have to go with Spelled as my recommendation. These next 2 books are what actually inspired me to do this video. That is because I literally read them at the same time, and I didn't want others to make this mistake, but it's taken me this long to actually do it. And these 2 books would be Defy by Sarah B. Larson and The Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. So Defy definitely has the same sort of premise as Mulan or Twelfth Night, because it is a young girl named Alex or Alexa who has to pretend to be a boy so that she can fight alongside her brother. And Throne of Glass is about a girl who is trying to become the king's champion so that she can gain her freedom, and there's so much more to the story, but that's what the first book is about, and the plot changes immensely throughout the series. To make a comparison, it's like in the first book, you're crawling, and by the last book, you are soaring through the air. It's just that vast of a difference. These 2 books definitely didn't have a similar plot, but it was the prince character in both of these. One is named Dorian, and the other is Damien. I could not tell them apart. I got so mixed up in my head. I was like, which prince is doing what? Because they were so similar. So that's why I wouldn't recommend reading these two books at the same time. And I would definitely have to pick the Throne of Glass series for my recommendation. These next two books are The Selection by Kiara Cass and The Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. These two books both have caste systems. The Selection is essentially The Bachelor meets The Hunger Games, and I really enjoyed it when I was younger. Not so much now, but I still think it is a good series. The Red Queen series is two different castes of people. It's based on their blood. Red blood means you're just a normal person and you don't have powers, and I believe it's silver blood or something. They have powers and they're seen as like the elite, and they look down upon all the reds, and then this girl who is a red suddenly has powers and has to be brought into the group to cover up that she's a red, and she's not welcomed in the slightest. The reason I wouldn't read these two books at the same time is because the main characters are insanely similar. I did enjoy The Selection more than the Red Queen series, so that would have to be my recommendation between these two. These next two books I wouldn't read at the same time or one right after the other, because that's what I did. And those two books would be The Princess and the Fangirl by Ashley Poston and Queens of Geek by Jen Wild. Both these books are set at a con, but when I read Queens of Geek, it just set the bar so high. It was just absolutely everything I could ever want. And then reading Princess and the Fangirl, which is still good. It's just, it didn't meet my expectations. Unfortunately, one of the main characters is really unlikable and unrelatable. At least that's how she felt for me. So she really sort of brought the book down. And although she does get better at the end, for a vast majority of the book, I just didn't like her. So because of these things, I'd have to pick Queens of Geek for my recommendation. Don't hate me for this next one, but I'm going to compare Twilight by Stephanie Meyer with Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick. Both these books have the mysterious bad boy who falls for the plain girl, and they both just happen to be supernatural creatures. I was just sort of tired of that trope, but Hush Hush would definitely have to be my recommendation between these two books. The last two books are Fablehaven by Brandon Mull and The Land of Stories by Christopher Colfer. Both these books are really good. Both these books are about siblings stumbling upon the fairy tale world. In Fablehaven, fairy tale creatures are in our world, and their eyes are open to this, and in The Land of Stories, they actually go into the fairy tale books and experience their world. I think these two series are both phenomenal, but they both have two siblings who are experiencing these worlds, and they both have very similar feels, but I feel like it's really just a personal preference of which one you would choose. For The Land of Stories, I feel like if you love fairy tale stories and sort of that magic treehouse vibe, you probably would like that one more. If you want a grittier, more Spiderwick Chronicles-esque story, then Fablehaven would be the one for you. I enjoyed both of these, but if I had to pick, personally, I liked The Land of Stories just a tad bit more. Just, that's me, but I can totally see why you would enjoy either of these. Alright, so those are all the books that I would not recommend reading at the same time. I would love to know some books that you wouldn't recommend reading simultaneously, and if you've read any of these, I'd love to know what you thought of them down in the comments. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to share the love. I'll see you next time. Bye!